My 6-year-old daughter cowered when I tried to high-five her, and my son started texting his mom every hour during visits. Then I discovered my best friend of 15 years was sleeping at my ex-wife's house, while her sorority sister therapist coached my kids to practice, telling a judge I touched them in bad places. I opened the door excited to take my kids in for the weekend, and my 6-year-old cowered when I went to high-five her. She didn't flinch, she didn't step away, she covered their head and ducked. My eyes went wide. I tried excusing it as a weird prank, until my 7-year-old son spent that whole weekend sitting just out of arm's reach from me. My ex-wife, their mother, played it off as a joke when I told her. They're just messing with you. You know how our kids get. But that wasn't it. My daughter wouldn't even unpack her toys. My son texted their mom every hour, just checking in. We're okay. When I tucked them into bed, they'd lie rigid until I left the room. One morning, I woke up to them standing by the door packed. Mom says we need to be back by noon. It was only 7 a.m. The next time they came over, they wouldn't even call me dad. Just used my name. Something was seriously wrong. The following Tuesday, I tried to make conversation and asked about their piano lessons. That's when my son looked at me with genuine confusion. Huh? Piano? We don't take crack. My daughter interrupted him with a subtle elbow to his ribs. He instantly changed his act. Oh yeah, piano. I like piano. It was good. I called my ex that night. Jake seemed confused when I asked about piano today. What? They're tired. She cut me off. Stop being so paranoid. They're growing. Just give them space. She hung up without letting me respond. I was definitely suspicious by that point. So suspicious that I actually called their piano teacher. My ex-wife told me they had been supposedly taking lessons for 10 weeks, and my kids had even told me all about the progress they were making. But when their teacher answered, she told me that there were no kids in her class with those names. My jaw dropped. I started investigating more, and that's when something happened that didn't seem all that relevant then, but sure as hell is now. I called my best friend Mike to see if he could pick up my kids early. It was my day to see them, but I was running late at a work meeting. Well, he gave me this long pause on the phone. Maybe it's best if their mom keeps them today, he finally said. You know, with how they've been acting and all. Again, I didn't think much. Just kept investigating, trying to find something that seemed shady. I called the school to confirm pickup times to make sure my ex picked them up on time. I checked the family calendar app we still shared. I even considered secretly planting audio recorders in my kids' bags. But then I found it. A charge on our old safety net joint account we hadn't used for years, even before we divorced. The charge was for Children's Therapy Associates. It came out every Tuesday, for 10 weeks. What's most shocking is that as their father with joint legal custody, I had to be notified about any medical treatment, including therapy. I had to sign consent forms, but I never did. I'd never heard of this place. Remember my best friend Mike? The one I said wasn't relevant. Well, he came over to watch a football game. I mentioned it to him, asked for his advice on how I should proceed, but Mike didn't even look up from his beer. Instead, he instantly took her side. Maybe she just forgot to tell you. I wouldn't make it a big thing. If you call, you'll end up looking like the crazy ex-husband. But I called the therapy office anyway. The receptionist was friendly and chatty. Oh yes, every Tuesday at 4 p.m., Dr. Sarah is wonderful with them. I asked some questions about Dr. Sarah, and I managed to get the receptionist to mention that my ex-wife was in the same sorority as Dr. Sarah. That was all I needed to know. I hung up and immediately looked up this Dr. Sarah online. I found her professional page first. Child psychologist specializing in recovered memory therapy and custody evaluation. Then I found her personal social media. There she was at my ex-wife's birthday party 2 months ago. I scrolled through more photos. There was another one from some barbecue, and in the background, with his arm draped around my ex-wife's shoulders, was Mike, my best friend, Mike. My chest felt tight. I kept scrolling. Mike at my daughter's dance recital that I wasn't even told about. Mike at Easter dinner at my ex's house. Mike at a family pool day. The photos went back months, right around when my kids started acting strange. That weekend, I knew I had to get answers. After dinner, I sat on the floor with my kids, kept my voice gentle and calm. Hey guys, can we talk about something? They went rigid. My son's lips started trembling. I asked some questions, and it took me almost an hour to get them to open up. Doctor, Sarah says you did bad things to us, he whispered, but our brains protected us by forgetting. My daughter nodded, tears forming. She shows us dolls and asks if you touch us like this. I felt sick. Is everything okay at mommy's house? The kids looked at each other in pure panic. My daughter started sobbing. We can't talk about mom's friend. You'll get mad and he's why we have bruises. My son interrupted her. Both of their faces flashed white. It's like they realized they said something they shouldn't have. The next morning at 7 a.m., someone knocked on my door. A process server handed me papers. Emergency custody modification. My ex was claiming the children had disclosed months of abuse during therapy. She wanted my visitation reduced to supervised only, pending a full psychological evaluation. My phone buzzed. A text from Mike. Just heard about the papers. Maybe it's for the best, bro. There at the bottom of the filing was a supporting statement from a concerned family friend who has witnessed troubling interactions. It was signed by Mike. I called my lawyer immediately. She picked up on the third ring, her voice sharp and professional. Catherine Chen speaking. I explained everything in a rush. The therapy sessions I never knew about, the false allegations, Mike's betrayal, the emergency custody papers. Catherine listened without interrupting, occasionally making small affirmative sounds to show she was taking notes. When I finished, she let out a long breath. First things first, document everything. Every text, every email, every interaction with your children. Take photos of any bruises they mentioned. We need to file an immediate response to the emergency motion. I grabbed a pen and started writing down her instructions. My hand shook slightly as she outlined the legal battle ahead. The court will likely order a custody evaluation, she continued. Given that a therapist is already involved, albeit one with clear conflicts of interest, we need to be strategic. Can you get me the exact dates and times of these supposed therapy sessions? I pulled up the bank statements on my laptop while keeping her on speaker. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. for the past 10 weeks. The charges are all here. Good. Now, this Dr. Sarah, did the receptionist give you her full name? Dr. Sarah Winters. I found her professional page and her connection to my ex-wife through social media. Catherine made another note. The sorority connection and personal relationship completely compromise any professional opinion she might offer. No ethical therapist would treat children when they have a personal relationship with one parent. We can file a complaint with the licensing board. My doorbell rang, interrupting our strategy session. Through the peephole, I saw my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, holding a casserole dish. I opened the door partially. Hi, Mrs. Chen. She peered peered at me with concern. I saw the children leaving so early yesterday. Everything all right? I forced a smile and accepted the dish. Just some scheduling changes. Thank you for this. After she left, I returned to Catherine. Sorry about that, my neighbor. No problem. Now, about your friend Mike. How long have you known him? 15 years. Since college. The betrayal stung fresh as I said it. And you had no idea about his relationship with your ex-wife? I thought back to all the times Mike had canceled plans recently. All his vague excuses. There were signs I missed. He'd been distant for months. Catherine's typing echoed through the phone. We'll subpoena his phone records if necessary. Right now, I need you to gather every piece of evidence you can. Screenshots of those social media posts, bank statements, anything that shows you've been an involved father. I spent the next 3 hours following her instructions. I downloaded every photo from the family cloud storage showing me with my kids at school events, sports games, bedtime routines. I printed emails between my ex and me about scheduling, showing how I'd never missed a visit. I even found old videos of my kids laughing and playing during our weekends together, clearly comfortable and happy. The doorbell rang again. This time I checked the security camera first. 2 police officers stood on my porch. My stomach dropped. I opened the door slowly. We're here for a welfare check, the taller officer said. We received a report of concerning behavior involving children at this address. I kept my voice steady. My children aren't here. They're with their mother. The officers exchanged glances. Mind if we come in and talk? I knew my rights, but also knew refusing would look suspicious. Of course. They walked through my living room, noting the toys neatly arranged in baskets, the children's artwork on the refrigerator, the safety locks on cabinets. The shorter officer picked up a framed photo of me pushing my kids on swings. Nice family, he commented. Thank you. I explained the custody situation briefly, keeping emotion out of my voice. They asked routine questions about the children's sleeping arrangements, their routines when they visited, any behavioral concerns. I answered honestly, showing them the kids' room with 2 separate beds, their clothes in the dresser, shelves of books and games. Looks like a good setup, the taller officer noted. We'll file our report. The timing of all these little details feels too perfect. Mike just happening to suggest the kids stay with mom, the therapy charges on an old forgotten account, the receptionist being so chatty about Dr. Sarah's sorority connection. Sorry to bother you. After they left, I called Catherine back immediately. The police just left. A welfare check. She's escalating quickly, Catherine said grimly. This is actually good for us. The officers saw a safe, child-friendly home. Their report will contradict her claims. Did you get their names and badge numbers? I had written them down. Officers Martinez and Johnson. Perfect. I'll request their report for our response. Now, let's talk about next steps. She outlined a plan. First, we'd file our response to the emergency motion, including evidence of Dr. Sarah's conflict of interest and the fact that I was never notified about therapy as required by our custody agreement. Second, we'd request an independent custody evaluator. Third, we'd subpoena the therapy records. What about the bruises my son mentioned? I asked, the words catching in my throat. Document everything they told you. Write it down word for word while it's fresh. If they have visible marks, photograph them. We may need to request a medical examination. I thought about my son's terrified face when he'd mentioned mom's friend. My hands clenched into fists. One more thing, Catherine added. No contact with Mike or your ex-wife except through lawyers or documented channels like your co-parenting app. They're building a case, and anything you say can be twisted. After hanging up, I sat in my children's room, surrounded by their things. My daughter's stuffed elephant stared at me from her pillow. My son's Lego creation sat half-finished on his desk. The silence felt oppressive. I started typing up everything my kids had told me, exactly as Catherine instructed. Every word about Dr. Sarah, the dolls, the bad things I supposedly did that their brains made them forget. My fingers trembled over the keyboard when I got to the part about bruises and mom's friend. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a photo of my kids at a park, with Mike pushing them on swings. The timestamp showed it was taken an hour ago, during what should have been school time. Another text followed. They're having so much fun with their Uncle Mike. He's so good with them. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Catherine. Her response came quickly. Save everything. This is harassment. They're trying to provoke you. The next few days blurred together. Catherine filed our response to the court. I went to work, trying to focus while my world crumbled. Colleagues noticed my distraction, but I couldn't explain. Every night, I lay awake replaying every interaction with Mike, every sign I'd missed. Thursday arrived, and I knew my kids would be at their therapy appointment. I drove past the office building at 3:45, parking where I could see the entrance. Sure enough, my ex-wife's car pulled up at 3:55. I watched my children trudge inside, my daughter clutching her brother's hand. I took photos from my car, documenting the appointment I was never told about. An hour later, they emerged. My son was crying. My daughter looked hollow, staring at the ground as they walked. That evening, Catherine called with news. The judge granted an expedited hearing for Monday. We'll present our evidence about the therapy conflict of interest and request immediate joint legal custody enforcement. What about the kids? Will they have to testify? Not at this hearing. This is just about the emergency motion. The full custody evaluation will come later. I spent the weekend preparing. I organized every piece of evidence into labeled folders. Bank statements showing the therapy charges, screenshots of Dr. Sarah's social media connections to my ex, photos of Mike with my family at events I wasn't invited to, text messages showing my attempts to communicate about the children. Sunday night, I couldn't eat. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the casserole Mrs. Chen had brought when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my daughter's tablet. Daddy? Her whisper was barely audible. Sweetie, are you okay? Mom's in the shower. Jake wanted me to call. I heard shuffling, then my son's voice. Dad, we don't want to go to Dr. Sarah anymore. She makes us say things that aren't true. My heart raced. It's okay, buddy. Can you tell me what kinds of things? She says you did bad stuff, but when we say you didn't, she says our brains are hiding it. She made me practice telling the judge. I grabbed my phone's recorder with shaking hands. Is it okay if I record this so I can remember exactly what you're telling me? Okay. His voice was so small. What did she make you practice? She said to tell the judge you hit us and touched us in bad places, but you never did that, Daddy. You never did. My daughter's voice came back. Mom's friend is mean. He grabbed Jake's arm hard when Jake said he missed you. Which friend, sweetie? Mike. He's here all the time now. He sleeps in Mom's room. The bathroom door opened in the background. Both children gasped. We have to go, my daughter whispered urgently. The call ended. I immediately saved the recording and sent it to Catherine with a detailed summary. Her response was swift. This changes everything. We'll file an emergency motion for immediate custody change based on code coaching and potential abuse. Can you be at my office at 7 a.m.? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I transcribed the entire conversation word for word, my hands shaking as I typed. The image of my son being forced to practice lies made me physically ill. Monday morning came too quickly and not fast enough. I put on my best suit and drove to Catherine's office in the pre-dawn darkness. She was already there, printer running, assembling documents. I've drafted an emergency motion based on the children's disclosure, she said without preamble. The coaching alone is serious, but the mention of physical bruising from Mike requires immediate intervention. We spent 2 hours reviewing everything. Catherine prepared me for what to expect, the questions I might face, the importance of staying calm no matter what accusations were made. Your ex will likely be there with her lawyer, she warned. Mike might be there too as the concerned family friend. No matter what they say, don't react. Let me handle it. The courthouse loomed before us as we walked up the steps. My legs felt unsteady, but I forced myself to project confidence. Inside the family court waiting area, I spotted them immediately. My ex sat with her lawyer, a stern-looking woman in a navy suit. Mike lounged in a chair nearby, scrolling through his phone like this was just another Monday. He looked up as we passed, and our eyes met. No shame, no guilt, just a slight smirk that made my jaw clench. Catherine's hand on my arm reminded me to keep walking. Remember, she whispered, he wants you to react. Don't give him the satisfaction. We settled at our table in the courtroom. I arranged my folders nervously while Catherine set up her laptop. The bailiff called us to rise as Judge Patterson entered. She was an older woman with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. We're here on an emergency motion regarding the Johnson children, she began, reviewing the files before her. I see we have competing emergency motions. Ms. Chen, since your client is responding to the original motion, we'll hear from the petitioner first. My ex-wife's lawyer stood, launching into a dramatic recitation of my supposed abuse, the children's disclosures in therapy, concerns about their behavior changes, the need for immediate protection. She painted me as a monster while I sat silent, my fingernails digging into my palms under the table. The children's therapist, Dr. Sarah Winters, has documented numerous concerning statements, she continued. We have her report here indicating potential suppressed trauma. Judge Patterson's expression remained neutral as she reviewed the document. I see. Ms. Chen, Catherine stood, her voice calm but firm. Your Honor, we have serious concerns about the validity of any reports from Dr. Winters. We have evidence that she has a personal relationship with the petitioner that completely compromises her professional objectivity. She presented the social media screenshots, the sorority connection, the photos from my ex's birthday party. Judge Patterson's eyebrows rose slightly as she examined them. Furthermore, Catherine continued, my client was never notified about these therapy sessions as required by the custody agreement. He never consented to treatment, which is a violation of his joint legal custody rights. The judge turned to my ex's lawyer. Can you explain why the father wasn't notified about medical treatment for the minor children? The lawyer shuffled papers nervously. It was an oversight, Your Honor. My client believed she had mentioned it. An oversight that lasted 10 weeks? Judge Patterson's tone was skeptical. Catherine seized the moment. Your Honor, we have additional evidence that these therapy sessions involved coaching the children to make false allegations. She presented the recording from last night, requesting to play it for the court. My ex's face went pale as our children's voices filled the courtroom. Jake explaining how Dr. Sarah made him practice lying. My daughter saying Mike hurt Jake when he mentioned missing me. That recording was made without my client's consent. The opposing lawyer objected. The children called their father of their own accord, Catherine responded. He has every right to record conversations with his own minor children during his legal parenting time. Judge Patterson held up a hand for silence. I've heard enough for the emergency matter. The therapy sessions with Dr. Winters will cease immediately. I'm ordering an independent custody evaluation with a court-appointed psychologist. In the meantime, the current custody schedule remains in effect. Your Honor, my ex's lawyer interjected. What about the children's safety? Mike showing up at court like he owns the place makes me wonder what his real role is in all this. Is he just the new boyfriend? Or does he have bigger plans with this whole situation? The judge's eyes narrowed. Based on what I've seen today, my concern is about coaching and potential physical discipline from an unauthorized caregiver. Mr. Johnson will have his regular parenting time. If there are genuine safety concerns, they can be addressed through proper channels with an unbiased professional. She turned to address both parties. I'm also issuing a temporary order. No therapy or medical treatment for the minor children without written consent from both parents. No overnight guests during parenting time until the custody evaluation is complete. Any violation will be considered contempt. Relief flooded through me, but Catherine wasn't done. Your Honor, regarding the welfare check called on my client's home. I have the police report, Judge Patterson interrupted. Officers found a safe, appropriate home environment. That matter is closed. As we gathered our papers, I caught sight of Mike's face. The smirk was gone, replaced by something darker. My ex whispered furiously with her lawyer while shooting glares our way. Outside the courthouse, Catherine walked me to my car. This is a good start, but it's not over. They'll regroup and try another angle. What about the bruises? What about Mike grabbing Jake? The custody evaluator will investigate. Keep documenting everything. If the children disclose anything else, record it if possible. Write it down immediately, if not. I sat in my car for a long moment after she left, letting the morning's victory sink in. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. This isn't over. I screenshotted it and forwarded it to Catherine, then blocked his number. Whatever game he and my ex were playing, I was done being passive. My kids needed me to fight for them, and that's exactly what I intended to do. The drive home felt different somehow. The weight on my chest had lifted slightly, replaced by determination. I had 3 days until my next scheduled time with the kids. 3 days to prepare for whatever my ex might try next. As I pulled into my driveway, Mrs. Chen was watering her garden. She waved, and I waved back, feeling more normal than I had in weeks. Inside, I looked around my quiet house, at the toys waiting for small hands, the books waiting to be read at bedtime, the refrigerator covered in artwork. This was just the beginning. The real battle lay ahead with the custody evaluation, the investigation into Mike's behavior, and undoing the damage Dr. Sarah had done to my children's minds. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I had hope. I opened my laptop and began typing notes about the hearing while everything was fresh. Catherine had taught me well. Document everything. As I typed, I thought about my kids, probably at school now, carrying the weight of secrets and lies they should never have had to bear. Soon, I promised silently. Soon, you won't have to pretend anymore. The court-appointed custody evaluator arrived at my home 3 days later. Dr. Margaret Thompson was a stern woman in her 60s who made it clear she'd seen every trick in the book. She walked through my house methodically, taking notes on her tablet while I followed nervously behind. She examined the children's room, opened their closets to see their clothes, checked the kitchen for appropriate food, and reviewed the safety measures throughout the house. Her questions were thorough and sometimes uncomfortable. She asked about my work schedule, my support system, my dating life, and my plans for the children's education. I answered everything honestly, showing her the calendar where I tracked every activity, every school event, every doctor's appointment. She nodded occasionally, but gave nothing away. When she left after 2 hours, I felt drained. Catherine called to check in, reminding me that the evaluator would also visit my ex-wife's home and interview the children separately. The waiting would be torture. That afternoon, I received an email from my ex through our co-parenting app. She informed me that the children had dentist appointments during my upcoming weekend and wouldn't be available until Sunday. I forwarded it to Catherine immediately. Catherine's response was swift. She filed a motion citing the judge's order about medical appointments requiring both parents' consent. Within hours, my ex backtracked, claiming she'd made an error with the dates. Friday arrived with my usual pickup time. I sat in my car outside my ex's house, watching the clock. 4 p.m. came and went. No sign of the kids. I texted through the app, keeping everything documented. No response. At 4:30, I knocked on the door. My ex answered with a fake, surprised expression. She claimed the kids were at a friend's birthday party and she'd forgotten to tell me. I asked for the address. She said she'd have to check and get back to me. I waited in my car, documenting everything. Catherine had warned me about these games. Stay calm, follow the process, don't give them ammunition. An hour later, my ex emerged with the kids. They walked slowly, heads down, my daughter gripping her brother's hand. The drive to my house was silent. Jake stared out the window while my daughter clutched her backpack like a shield. At home, they went straight to their room without the usual excitement about weekend activities. I made their favorite dinner, hoping to ease the tension. They picked at their food, exchanging worried glances. When I asked about school, they gave one-word answers. When I suggested a movie, they shook their heads. That night, I heard crying from their room. I found Jake curled up in his sister's bed, both of them trembling. I sat on the floor beside them, not wanting to crowd their space. Eventually, my daughter whispered that Dr. Sarah had told them I might try to steal them away forever. I spent an hour gently explaining custody arrangements, how courts worked, how both parents would always be in their lives. Slowly, their breathing calmed. They fell asleep, holding hands. Saturday morning brought a new challenge. The kids refused breakfast, saying their stomachs hurt. They looked genuinely pale. I took their temperatures, normal, but kept them hydrated and comfortable. By noon, they seemed better, playing quietly with Legos. Then my daughter asked if Uncle Mike would be mad that they were here. The question hit me like a punch. I kept my voice neutral, asking why she thought that. She explained that Mike had told them I was trying to break up their family. I documented every word while maintaining a calm exterior. Inside, rage burned at Mike, poisoning my children against me. But showing anger would only confirm their fears. Instead, I focused on reassuring them that adults sometimes disagreed, but it wasn't their fault. The weekend crawled by with small victories. By Sunday morning, the kids were eating normally and even laughed at cartoons. When pickup time approached, the anxiety returned. They packed their bags slowly, checking multiple times that they hadn't forgotten anything. My ex arrived with Mike. They stayed in the car, but I could see them watching. The kids hugged me goodbye, stiff and quick, before running to the car. Mike smirked through the windshield. Monday brought an unexpected call from the school counselor. She'd noticed changes in both children's behavior, increased anxiety, difficulty concentrating, and Jake had been caught lying about small things. She wanted to schedule a meeting. I agreed immediately and informed Catherine. This was independent confirmation of the harm being done. Catherine advised me to request that the counselor document her observations for the custody evaluation. The meeting was illuminating. The counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, had known my kids for 3 years. She described how outgoing and happy they'd been, contrasting sharply with recent months. Jake had started having bathroom accidents. My daughter was isolating herself from friends. Mrs. Rodriguez asked gentle questions about home life. I explained the custody situation carefully, focusing on facts rather than accusations. She took notes and promised to monitor the situation closely. Driving home, my phone rang through the car speakers. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Dr. Thompson, the custody evaluator. She had some follow-up questions about the children's extracurricular activities. Her questions seemed routine until she asked about piano lessons. I explained the whole situation, how I'd discovered the lessons were fake, how the money was actually going to therapy. She made interested noises and asked for documentation. After the call, paranoia crept in. Why was she asking about that specifically? Had my ex told a different story? I called Catherine, who reminded me to stick to facts and trust the process. Tuesday meant another therapy day for the kids. I drove past Dr. Sarah's office again, timing my route home from work to coincide. This time, I noticed Mike's car in the parking lot too. I took photos from a distance, documenting his presence during the sessions. That evening, I received a formal letter from my ex's lawyer. They were requesting a modification to the pickup schedule, citing my harassment and stalking behavior for driving past the therapy office. My stomach dropped. How did they know? Catherine was furious when I called. They were surveilling me while accusing me of stalking. She immediately drafted a response highlighting the hypocrisy and the fact that I had every right to drive on public roads. Wednesday brought another surprise. A former colleague reached out, mentioning they'd seen Mike at a bar bragging about his new girlfriend and her kids. He'd apparently said I was a deadbeat who'd abandoned the family. The colleague knew better and thought I should know what was being said. I thanked him and forwarded the information to Catherine. She added it to our growing file on Mike's interference with my parental relationship. There's something odd about Mike texting, "This isn't over," right after court. Why would he risk leaving such clear evidence when he's been so careful about staying in the shadows? Every piece of evidence mattered. Thursday was quiet, almost suspiciously so. No surprise motions, no harassing texts, no welfare checks. I used the time to organize my documentation, creating a detailed timeline of events. The pattern was clear: escalating parental alienation designed to destroy my relationship with my children. Friday's pickup was different. The kids came out immediately, but they were accompanied by my ex. She handed handed me a bag of medicine, claiming Jake had developed allergies and needed specific foods. The medication was prescription, which meant another doctor visit I hadn't been informed about. I accepted the bag calmly while photographing everything. In the car, Jake admitted he felt fine and didn't know why he needed medicine. My daughter added that the doctor had asked lots of questions about our house and whether they felt safe. Another medical professional involved without my consent. Catherine was building a strong case about violations of joint legal custody. Every overstep my ex made was documented and would be presented to the court. The weekend started better. The kids seemed more relaxed, even asking to go to the park. We spent Saturday morning feeding ducks and playing on swings. Other families were there, normal people living normal lives. It felt like a glimpse of what we'd lost. Then I noticed a familiar car in the parking lot. Mike, watching from a distance. I didn't react, didn't acknowledge him, just continued playing with my kids. But I discreetly took photos with my phone, documenting his presence. When we got home, I checked the photos. In one, I could see he was on his phone, likely reporting to my ex. The surveillance was constant. They wanted me to snap, to do something they could use against me. Saturday evening, the kids asked to call their mom. I agreed, of course, but stayed nearby. I heard my daughter reporting what we'd eaten, what we'd done, even what TV shows we'd watched. It sounded rehearsed, like she was going through a checklist. After the call, Jake looked troubled. He admitted that mom had told them to remember everything and tell her later. She wanted to know if I'd said anything about her or Mike, if I'd tried to turn them against her. I reassured them they didn't have to report on anyone, that both houses were their homes. But the damage was clear. They were being used as spies, forced to navigate adult conflicts they couldn't understand. Sunday morning, Dr. Thompson called again. She wanted to schedule individual interviews with the children at a neutral location. We agreed on the following Wednesday at her office. The kids would miss some school, but this was more important. I informed my ex through the app, following the court's communication guidelines. Her response was immediate and hostile, accusing me of manipulating the evaluation. Catherine reminded me not to engage, let her dig her own hole. The Sunday pickup was tense. My ex arrived early, pounding on the door while the kids were still eating lunch. I didn't answer immediately, finishing our meal calmly. When I did open the door, she was recording with her phone. She demanded the children immediately, claiming I was withholding them. I pointed out she was 40 minutes early. She continued recording, asking leading questions, trying to provoke a reaction. I simply asked her to wait in her car until the scheduled time. Mike appeared behind her, stepping forward aggressively. I stood my ground, but didn't engage, keeping my hands visible and my voice calm. The kids watched from the hallway, terrified. This was exactly what they didn't need to see. Finally, at the correct time, I walked the children to the car. They were crying, apologizing for causing problems. I hugged them, promised everything would be okay, and watched them drive away with two adults who were actively destroying their childhood. Monday's mail brought the official report from the police welfare check. As Catherine predicted, it was entirely favorable, describing a safe, appropriate home environment. One more piece of evidence that the allegations were false. I also received a bill from the dentist my ex had taken the kids to without my knowledge. The amount was significant, and insurance had been billed. Another violation of the court order requiring joint consent for medical treatment. Tuesday afternoon, Catherine called with news. Dr. Thompson had interviewed my ex and Mike. Apparently, it hadn't gone well. Mike had been evasive about his relationship timeline, and my ex had contradicted herself several times about the therapy sessions. Better yet, Dr. Thompson had requested all of Dr. Sarah's therapy notes. This was huge. Either Dr. Sarah would have to produce documentation of her coaching sessions, or she'd have to admit they didn't exist. Either way, it would expose the scheme. That evening, I prepared for the children's interviews with Dr. Thompson. I wrote down key points to remember but didn't want to coach them in any way. They'd been manipulated enough. The truth would have to be sufficient. Wednesday morning arrived gray and drizzly. I picked up the kids from school, explaining they had an important appointment. They seemed relieved to miss class, but nervous about talking to another doctor. Dr. Thompson's office was designed to be child-friendly, with toys and colorful furniture. She met with each child separately while I waited in the lobby. An hour with Jake, 45 minutes with my daughter. I tried to read a magazine but couldn't focus. When they emerged, both kids looked drained but not upset. Dr. Thompson thanked us professionally, giving nothing away. In the car, the kids said she'd asked about both houses, their routines, their feelings, normal questions, nothing scary. I dropped them back at school, hugging them extra tight. They seemed lighter somehow, like sharing their truth with a neutral party had helped. I hoped Dr. Thompson could see through the manipulation they'd endured. Thursday brought another legal filing from my ex. She was requesting an emergency hearing, claiming I'd violated the court order by interrogating the children about their therapy. The basis? The kids had told her about Dr. Thompson's questions. Catherine laughed when she read it. My ex was panicking, throwing everything at the wall. The court had ordered the evaluation, not me. This desperate filing would only make her look worse. Friday's pickup was surprisingly smooth. The kids came out on time, even smiling slightly. In the car, my daughter mentioned that Mike hadn't been around all week. Mom had been crying a lot. The house felt different. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I wondered if the pressure was causing cracks in their relationship. Mike was good at playing supportive boyfriend when things were easy, but legal scrutiny might be too much heat for him. The weekend passed peacefully. We baked cookies, built a blanket fort, watched movies, normal kid activities that felt precious now. I caught myself memorizing moments, storing them up in case they were taken away. Saturday night, Jake had a nightmare. He dreamed about being in a room with two doors, me behind one and his mom behind the other. He had to choose, but couldn't move. I held him while he cried, feeling the weight of what adult conflicts do to innocent children. Sunday, while the kids played outside, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my car at the park the previous weekend, with a message warning me about stalking Mike. I screenshotted it immediately and forwarded to Catherine. She responded quickly. This was witness intimidation. Mike was getting sloppy, making threats that could be used against him. She advised me to file a police report for harassment, creating an official record. The Sunday exchange approached with familiar dread, but something was different. My ex came alone, looking haggard. She didn't make eye contact, just waited by her car. The kids hugged me normally, not the stiff performance of recent weeks. As they got in the car, my ex finally looked at me. For a moment, I saw something like regret in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold mask she'd worn for months. They drove away in silence. Monday morning, Catherine called early. Dr. Thompson had submitted her her preliminary report to the court. While the full evaluation would take weeks, she'd raised immediate concerns about the children's emotional state and the therapy with Dr. Sarah. The judge had scheduled another hearing for Thursday. This time, it would address the violations of joint legal custody and the unauthorized therapy sessions. Catherine was optimistic, but warned me to prepare for anything. I spent Monday evening organizing my evidence binders, bank statements, text messages, photos, recordings, medical bills, school reports. The pattern of alienation was undeniable when laid out chronologically. But would it be enough? Tuesday, I noticed Mike's car outside my office building. He was parked across the street, just sitting there. I documented it, but didn't engage. Let him waste his time trying to intimidate me. I had work to do and children to fight for. That afternoon, the school counselor called again. Both kids had shown improvement since the previous week, participating more in class and playing with friends. She wondered if something had changed at home. I mentioned the custody evaluation, and she offered to provide a statement if needed. Wednesday felt like the calm before a storm. I worked late, trying to distract myself from tomorrow's hearing. Catherine called to review strategy one more time. Stay calm, answer questions directly, let the evidence speak for itself. That night, I stood in my children's empty room, looking at their drawings on the wall. Pictures of our family, but recent ones showed 3 figures instead of 4. Sometimes Mike was there, sometimes not. The confusion in their art broke my heart. Thursday morning dawned bright and cold. Why does Mike keep showing up everywhere like he's got nothing better to do? First the park, then outside the office, just sitting in his car watching? Something tells me a guy with a real job doesn't have time to play detective all day long. I put on my best suit again, gathered my documents, and drove to meet Catherine at her office. We reviewed everything one final time. She was confident, but reminded me that family court could be unpredictable. At the courthouse, we saw my ex with her lawyer and Mike, but something was different. They weren't sitting together. Mike was several seats away, looking uncomfortable. My ex kept checking her phone, distracted and anxious. Catherine noticed too. She whispered that something had shifted in their dynamic. Maybe the pressure was getting to them. Maybe Mike hadn't signed up for this level of legal drama. Maybe my ex was realizing the cost of her scheme. We entered the courtroom, taking our seats at the respondent's table. Judge Patterson entered, looking serious as she reviewed the files before her. The bailiff called court to order, and I straightened in my seat. This hearing would be crucial. The custody evaluator's concerns, the evidence of coaching, the unauthorized medical treatment, it would all be addressed. Whatever happened next would determine whether my children could finally be free from the manipulation that had traumatized them. As Judge Patterson began speaking, I thought about Jake and my daughter, probably at school, carrying burdens no child should bear. Soon, I promised them silently. Soon, this nightmare would end, one way or another. The judge's first words made my heart race. She'd reviewed Dr. Thompson's preliminary report and had serious concerns about the children's welfare. She turned her sharp gaze to my ex-wife's table, and I knew the tide was finally turning. Judge Patterson's voice carried through the courtroom with authority. She outlined Dr. Thompson's findings, each point landing like a hammer blow against my ex's case. The evaluator had noted concerning patterns of coaching, the children's rehearsed responses, and their visible anxiety when discussing certain topics. My ex shifted in her seat, whispering frantically to her lawyer. Mike sat rigid, no longer scrolling through his phone. The dynamic had shifted completely from our last hearing. Catherine stood when prompted, presenting additional evidence we'd gathered. The unauthorized medical appointments, the prescription medications for non-existent conditions, Mike's documented presence at therapy sessions he had no business attending. She laid out each violation methodically, building an undeniable case of parental alienation. The opposing lawyer attempted to object several times, but Judge Patterson shut her down quickly. When she tried to argue that the therapy was necessary for the children's well-being, the judge asked for specific documentation of trauma or concerning behaviors that predated the therapy sessions. There was none. Dr. Sarah Winters was called to provide her therapy notes. She approached the stand looking far less confident than her social media photos suggested. Under questioning, she admitted she'd never documented any actual disclosures of abuse. Her notes consisted mainly of therapeutic exercises designed to help children recover memories. When pressed about her personal relationship with my ex, she became evasive. Judge Patterson's expression darkened with each revelation. She asked Dr. Sarah directly about her ethical obligations regarding conflicts of interest. The therapist stumbled through an explanation that satisfied no one. When dismissed, she hurried from the courtroom without looking at anyone. Mike was called next. He strutted to the witness stand with false confidence that quickly evaporated under Catherine's questioning. She established the timeline of his relationship with my ex, using his own social media posts and text messages we'd subpoenaed. The evidence showed their relationship had begun months before my ex filed for custody modification. When asked about his interactions with my children, Mike claimed he was just trying to be a positive male influence. Catherine presented the text, where he'd told me the custody papers were for the best. His face reddened as she read it aloud. He tried to explain it away as concern for the children, but his words rang hollow. The school counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, testified via video link. She described the dramatic changes in both children's behavior, the anxiety that manifested in physical symptoms, Jake's regression in bathroom habits. Her professional opinion was that the children were experiencing significant stress from adult conflicts. My ex took the stand last. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a concerned mother protecting her children, but the evidence was overwhelming. When confronted with the recording of our children saying they were being coached, she claimed I'd manipulated them. When shown the bills for unauthorized medical treatment, she said she'd forgotten to inform me. Each excuse sounded weaker than the last. Judge Patterson had heard enough. She called a recess, during which my ex and her lawyer huddled in heated discussion. Mike had already left the courtroom, apparently deciding his support had limits. When we reconvened, the judge's decision was swift and decisive. The temporary orders were modified immediately. My regular custody schedule was restored without supervision requirements. All therapy for the children would cease, except through court-approved providers with no connection to either parent. My ex was ordered to pay my legal fees for the frivolous emergency motion. More significantly, Judge Patterson ordered a comprehensive review of the custody arrangement. She expressed serious concerns about my ex's judgment and the psychological harm inflicted on the children. A guardian ad litem would be appointed to represent the children's interests going forward. As we left the courthouse, my ex ex avoided eye contact completely. Her lawyer muttered something about an appeal, but we all knew the evidence was too damaging. Catherine walked me to my car, reminding me this was just one battle in a longer war, but a crucial victory nonetheless. That afternoon, I picked up my children from school at the regular time. They seemed confused but relieved when I explained they'd be staying with me for our normal schedule. No more supervised visits, no more Dr. Sarah, no more being asked to lie about their father. The weekend felt different. The kids were still anxious, still processing months of manipulation, but something had shifted. They unpacked their bags completely for the first time in months. My daughter arranged her stuffed animals on her bed. Jake asked if we could work on his Lego project together. Saturday morning, we made pancakes. The kids helped mix the batter, getting flour everywhere. Their laughter sounded rusty, but genuine. We spent the day doing normal things, going to the park, reading books, playing board games. No Mike watching from the parking lot, no rehearsed phone calls to their mother. That night, Jake asked if he was in trouble for telling the truth to Dr. Thompson. I assured him that telling the truth was never wrong, that adults should never ask children to lie. He nodded solemnly, then asked if we could have pizza for dinner tomorrow. The normalcy of the request made my chest tight with emotion. Sunday's exchange was subdued. My ex arrived alone, on time, and waited in the car. The kids hugged me naturally, promised to see me Wednesday, and walked to her car without the previous drama. Progress, however small. The following weeks brought gradual changes. The guardian ad litem met with both children, observing them in both homes. Her preliminary report echoed Dr. Thompson's concerns. The children were clearly more relaxed and authentic in my home, while visits with their mother were marked by anxiety and careful behavior. Mike disappeared from the picture entirely. My ex's social media, which I only checked for documentation purposes, showed no trace of him. The kids mentioned he hadn't been around, that mom seemed sad, but they didn't have to report on their visits anymore. Dr. Sarah faced an ethics review from the licensing board. Catherine had filed the complaint with extensive documentation. While the process would take months, Dr. Sarah's practice of treating children while maintaining personal relationships with one parent was clearly problematic. The kids started healing slowly. Jake's bathroom accident stopped. My daughter began playing with friends again. Their teachers reported improved focus and participation. Mrs. Rodriguez sent periodic updates, noting steady progress. 3 months after the hearing, the final custody evaluation was complete. Dr. Thompson's comprehensive report detailed the systematic alienation campaign, the psychological impact on the children, and recommendations for moving forward. Primary custody was awarded to me, with my ex receiving supervised visitation until she completed a parenting class and individual therapy. The transition wasn't seamless. The kids struggled with guilt about their mother's reduced role. They worried about her being alone. I found a therapist with no connection to anyone involved, someone who specialized in helping children navigate difficult family dynamics. Slowly, they began processing their experiences. My ex initially resisted the new arrangement, filing several motions that were quickly dismissed. Eventually, she seemed to accept the reality. Her supervised visits were awkward at first, but she gradually learned to interact with the children without interrogating them or discussing adult matters. 6 months later, life had found a new rhythm. The kids came home from school to my house every day. We had routines, inside jokes, regular bedtimes. They still saw their mother, now unsupervised after she'd completed her requirements, but the dynamic had shifted completely. Jake no longer flinched when I raised my hand for a high five. My daughter called me dad again without hesitation. They'd stopped looking over their shoulders, stopped censoring their words, stopped living in fear of saying the wrong thing. One evening, as I tucked them into bed, my daughter asked if I was still sad about Uncle Mike. I thought carefully before answering, explaining that sometimes people we trust disappoint us, but that doesn't mean we stop trusting altogether. She nodded wisely, then asked if we could get a dog. Jake immediately seconded the motion. As I turned off their light, I realized we'd survived. Not unscathed, but intact. The legal battles were mostly over, the daily drama had faded, and we were just a father and his children figuring out life together. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, conversations about why families sometimes break apart, questions I couldn't answer easily, but we were healing. The truth had finally prevailed over manipulation. The children were free to be themselves, to love both parents without fear, to have a childhood without adult conflicts poisoning every interaction. The foundation my ex and Mike had tried to destroy had held, stronger now for having been tested. I closed their door softly and went to the kitchen to clean up from dinner. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, homework to supervise, activities to coordinate, the usual chaos of single parenthood. But tonight, my children were safe, happy, and honest. That was victory enough. All right, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for hanging out while I tried to make sense of all this weirdness. It's always more fun figuring it out together. I'll catch you in the next one. My family just arranged my marriage to my 13-year-old cousin. There's only one way to stop it. I was 23 when my family decided it was time for me to collect my first wife. They already had her picked out, my 13-year-old cousin Fatima, whose mother bragged about her early development. You see, every girl in my family knew the rule. The day you get your first period was the day you got married. It didn't matter whether you still played with dolls or couldn't reach the kitchen counter. If you could bleed, you could breed. I was 9 when I watched my oldest brother Ahmed get married to his first wife on his 21st birthday. She was 12 years old. By the time I was 15, Ahmed had buried that first wife and was on to his third. Pregnancy complications, everyone said. Your wife's youth was like a currency. Whichever man had the youngest, most obedient wife was the most praised in society. At family gatherings, my uncles would compete like kids comparing prizes. Amina was only 11 when I claimed her, Uncle Kareem would boast, holding up her photo. In response, Uncle Hassan would lean back, smirking. That's nothing. I got my Yasmin at 10, and she still had her baby teeth. The jewelry shop didn't even make wedding rings that small. For years, I played along, smiling when they discussed my future, agreeing that 14 was was getting too old for a bride. Inside, my stomach churned. But what could I do? Speaking against it meant exile of you and all the women in the family. 3 months before my wedding date, I found Fatima in our family's utility room with a bottle of bleach. Her hands were shaking so bad she couldn't open it. When she saw me, she dropped to her knees. Please don't tell. Please, I can't. I know what happens. I've seen what happens. I took the bottle, sat on the floor next to her, and for the first time in my life, I said out loud, I know, I don't want this either. She sat there with her mouth wide open, staring at me like I had 5 heads. Suddenly, she lunged at me for a hug. Can you please tell them I'm crazy? Tell them I'm possessed or cursed. They won't want me if I'm insane. Bad blood ruins the lineage. That sentence changed everything, because she was right. My family obsessed over bloodlines, genetic purity, producing perfect sons. Mental illness was the ultimate contamination. I'd seen them reject marriage proposals over rumors of a great aunt who talked to walls. Within a week, I taught Fatima to twitch at dinner tables, mumbling numbers in corners, scratching symbols on her arms with her fingernails. I coached her through episodes, taught her to roll her eyes back, speak in gibberish, and claim she saw demons in the wallpaper. She put on such an award-winning act that sometimes even I was disturbed. My mother was horrified. She was perfect 2 weeks ago, she wailed to my father. Now look at her. What if it spreads to the children? The wedding was quietly postponed. Word spread through the girl cousins like wildfire. My sister Amira, 14 and recently bloomed, came to me next. Then her friend Noor, then Noor's sister. Before I knew it, I was running midnight coaching sessions in my car, teaching girls how to manifest madness. Dead eyes are crucial, I'd instruct. Stare through people, not at them. Laugh at nothing. Cry without reason. But timing is everything. Save the worst episodes for when marriage talks begin. Some girls were naturals. My cousin Layla developed a fictional friend she'd have full conversations with during family gatherings. She'd serve tea to empty chairs, scolding invisible children. Her father postponed 3 marriage proposals, terrified of producing defective grandchildren. Others needed more work. Soft-spoken Miriam couldn't sell the performance until I taught her to channel her real terror into fake hysteria. Think about your wedding night, I'd tell her. Now scream. The sounds she made convinced everyone. Within 6 months, we had a full network. 15 marriageable girls, all displaying various forms of borderline schizophrenia. Family meetings turned to chaos as girls would trigger each other. One would start humming, another would begin rocking. Suddenly 3 were speaking in unison about visions of black water. The elders panicked. They brought in healers who charged fortunes to wave incense around, doctors who prescribed sedatives, religious leaders who performed exorcisms that left the girls even more convincingly traumatized. I thought we could maintain it indefinitely. The girls were protecting each other, older ones coaching younger ones as they came of age. We had a system, and my family may have been PDF files, but they weren't stupid. So after a year of failed cures, they started noticing patterns. How the madness only struck marriageable girls. How symptoms peaked during wedding seasons. How I, somehow, was always nearby when episodes occurred. The final gathering happened on a Thursday. 23 of us were at my uncle's house for his daughter's engagement. The plan was to have her fake her worst episode yet. But when my uncle called her forward to receive her engagement blessing, she looked across the room and locked eyes with Fatima. Suddenly, her hand reached into her pocket and she was downing over a dozen pills in one go. We were forced to call the police. Sarah collapsed as paramedics burst through the door, her father screaming at her to vomit while she whispered the groom's age to the female EMT. The room erupted into chaos. Men scrambled for phones, women shrieked, and the younger girls pressed themselves against walls, eyes wide with terror. Uncle Hassan grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. You did this, he hissed, while his other hand worked his phone furiously. I caught a glimpse of the screen, a group chat titled Emergency Protocol, with messages flying. 20 pills, I shouted to the paramedics over the noise. She took 20 pills. The EMT working on Sarah looked up sharply. How old is she asked, and I watched every man in the room shift nervously, their eyes darting between exits. From across the room, Sarah's 11-year-old sister started signing frantically to the other girls. I recognized some of the gestures from our sessions. Danger, hide, run. The younger ones began edging toward the kitchen door. Then Fatima did something that stopped everyone cold. She stood up straight, dropped her vacant stare, and spoke in a clear, strong voice for the first time in months. She took 20 pills because she's being sold to a 45-year-old man. The room exploded. Fathers lunged for their daughters, dragging them toward exits. Tables overturned. Someone's phone shattered against the tile floor. Through the chaos, I noticed one of the paramedics had pulled out her phone, snapping photos of the decorated engagement stage with its child-sized throne. I had seconds to decide. The marriage contracts were still in Uncle Hassan's study. The evidence we'd collected over months was hidden in various locations, but Sarah was dying on the floor, foam at her lips, her body convulsing. I chose Sarah. I dropped to my knees beside the EMTs, rattling off everything I knew about her medical history, allergies, the exact timing of when she'd taken the pills. Behind me, I heard car doors slamming as 3 girls were dragged away by their fathers. Police sirens wailed outside. Through the window, I saw families scattering like roaches when lights flip on. In the kitchen, smoke billowed up. Someone was burning documents in the sink, the acrid smell of burning paper mixed with incense and fear sweat. Officer Martinez was first through the door. I'd seen him at community events, knew he understood our culture's darker corners. His eyes swept the scene, the overturned furniture, the smoke, the young girls being hustled out back doors. He called for backup, specifically requesting the specialized unit. They lifted Sarah onto the gurney. Despite being unconscious, her right hand stayed clenched in a tight fist. The female EMT tried to pry it open to insert an IV, but Sarah's fingers wouldn't budge. Uncle Hassan cornered me by the stairs while everyone focused on Sarah. His breath was hot on my face, smelling of cardamom and rage. Every girl will pay for this betrayal, he said quietly, starting with your sister. Before I could respond, my mother appeared and slapped me hard across the face. The crack echoed through the room. You've destroyed us, she screamed. Our family's honor, centuries of tradition, gone because of your weakness. I noticed cousins had their phones out, live streaming her performance. The family was already controlling the narrative. The EMTs wheeled Sarah toward the ambulance. As they maneuvered the gurney through the doorway, her clenched hand relaxed slightly. Something small and black fell onto the white sheet, a flash drive. The EMT picked it up, frowning at the label written in Sarah's careful handwriting. Insurance. Sarah's eyes fluttered open for just a moment as they loaded her into the ambulance. Her lips moved, no sound coming out, but I read the words clearly. Check your car. The ambulance doors slammed shut. Police were separating family members for questioning. I watched Uncle Hassan speaking earnestly to an officer, gesturing at me, his face a mask of concern. Other men nodded along, their stories already synchronized. At the hospital, Sarah's father hid us there. I found him at the nurse's station, speaking rapidly to the staff. She's been showing signs of mental illness for months, he insisted. Delusions, paranoia. She needs psychiatric hold for her own safety. The nurse taking notes glanced at Sarah's chart, then at the bruises visible on her arms. Old bruises, fingerprint-shaped. I tried to approach Sarah's room but hit a wall of hospital security. Her father had already filed paperwork. I'm sorry, the guard said, not unkindly. Family only, and there's a note here that you're not to have contact with the patient. My phone buzzed, non-stop. Messages from the network. 3 girls texting that they were being locked in basements. Their fake madness now being used as justification for imprisonment. They say it's for our own good, Layla wrote, until the episodes pass. I ran to my car to check Sarah's message. Underneath, magnetic and covered in road grime, was a GPS tracker, but that wasn't what she'd meant. In my glove compartment, wrapped in a plastic bag, was a notebook I'd never seen before. Sarah's handwriting filled every page. Dates, names, ages, marriage contracts going back 5 years, deaths marked with red circles. My phone rang. Unknown number. You've been teaching young girls to lie, a man's voice said, to corrupt their minds with fantasies. What kind of man spends time alone with little girls in his car at night? The accusation hit like ice water. I realized how they'd flip our story. Not a rescue network, a predator grooming vulnerable children. Child services arrived at the hospital while I stood frozen in the parking lot. Through the glass doors, I watched Uncle Hassan pull out a folder. Even from this distance, I could see official letterhead. Psychiatric evaluations. All dated months ago, before our network even started. All signed by the same name, Dr. Rashid, who'd married my cousin 3 years prior. I needed those marriage contracts from Uncle Hassan's house. The evidence that would prove what we were really fighting. I drove there, knowing it was probably a trap, but having no choice. The house was dark, except for his study window. I climbed through the back garden, the way I had as a child stealing sweets. The study door was cracked open. I slipped inside, phone ready to photograph everything. I've been waiting for you. Fatima's father sat in Uncle Hassan's chair, fingers steepled. We need to discuss your options. My hand went to the door, but 2 of my cousins stepped out from behind it. I was trapped. It's simple, he continued. Marry Fatima tomorrow, properly, traditionally. All charges dropped, this unfortunate misunderstanding forgotten. Orient. He pulled out his phone and played a recording. My voice, clear as day, alone with young girls in my car, teaching them to act. Without context, it sounded like something else entirely. Coaching them to lie to their parents, he said, filling their heads with stories, meeting them secretly. What would police think? The imam arrived then, still in his formal robes. He looked at me with disappointment. This should be handled within our community, he said to Fatima's father. These girls need spiritual guidance, not outside interference. One of the nurses from the hospital, a young woman who'd been kind earlier, appeared in the doorway. She leaned close to me as she passed. The imam's daughter disappeared when she was 14, she whispered. Some say she ran, some say other things. 3 families had already coordinated their stories. The girls were mentally ill, triggered by my dangerous influence. I was a predator who'd taken advantage of their conditions. The fake madness we'd created as protection was now being weaponized against us. My sister Amira had been pulled from school. My mother posted photos on social media. Amira's phone smashed on the kitchen floor, captioned with concerns about negative influences and protecting our children. Amira stood behind her in the photo, face blank, the dead-eyed stare I'd taught her now serving their purposes. I tried calling Aunt Rashida, the only adult who'd ever questioned our traditions. Her daughter answered, whispering quickly. They put Mom on a plane to Yemen last night. She fought them. They sedated her. The line went dead. Back at the hospital, a psychiatrist evaluated Sarah while her father translated. I watched through a window as her father twisted every word. Sarah's desperate truth became symptoms of psychosis in his retelling. Her accusations became delusions. Her fear became paranoia. I couldn't stand it anymore. That Friday, I went to the mosque during prayers. Hundreds of men knelt in rows. I stood up during the sermon and shouted the truth. Sarah is being sold to a 45-year-old man. Our daughters are being trafficked as child brides. Hands grabbed me from all directions. I was dragged out, thrown onto the concrete steps. Men I'd known my whole life stood over me, their faces twisted with rage. But some of the younger men hung back, uncomfortable. A few women peering from the women's section had tears in their eyes. The foundation was cracking, but I didn't know yet how deep the rot went, or how many more girls would pay the price for our resistance. As I picked myself up from the mosque steps, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo of Amira, her dead-eyed stare now genuine, holding a sign, "My brother is sick. He made us all sick too." The war for our girls' freedom had only just begun. Uncle Hassan started dating my ex-girlfriend Priya, showing up at my workplace with her. She wore a gold necklace with a pendant that matched the child-sized wedding rings from our family's collection. My co-workers noticed my reaction when they walked into the cafe where I worked part-time. Priya avoided eye contact while Uncle Hassan ordered coffee, his arm possessively around her waist. An anonymous report appeared at Child Protective Services, claiming I had inappropriate access to minor females. The social worker who called asked pointed questions about my time alone with young girls. My manager overheard the conversation and told me to take the week off while they sorted things out. Back home, I discovered my childhood journals scattered across my bed. Pages I'd never written were inserted parted between real entries. The handwriting was close to mine, but not quite right. New passages described disturbing thoughts about young girls, fantasies that made my skin crawl. My mother stood in the doorway watching me read them. "I've been documenting your illness for years," she said calmly, "just in case we ever needed proof. A mother knows when something's wrong with her son." The forgeries went back a decade. She'd been building this insurance policy since I was 13. Every normal teenage thought twisted into something sinister. Every interaction with female cousins reframed as predatory interest. My 7-year-old cousin Aliyah came to visit with her parents. During dinner, she announced to everyone that I was sick like the other girls. She recited Uncle Hassan's exact words with practiced precision. When her male teacher walked past our table at the restaurant, she flinched and pressed herself against her mother. The teacher noticed and frowned. Security footage from Sarah's engagement party surfaced online, edited to remove all context. The video showed only me agitating young girls, teaching them to act strangely. Comments poured in, calling me a monster. My face became recognizable in our community as the man who corrupted innocent children. The family lawyer filed for conservatorship over me, citing mental health concerns and endangerment of minors. The paperwork claimed I suffered from delusions that made me a danger to myself and others. They wanted control of my finances, my medical decisions, my freedom of movement. I remembered my brother Ahmed's phone was still active on the family plan. Late at night, I used his login to access the family WhatsApp group. The messages made my blood run cold. They were moving marriage contracts to a storage unit. Uncle Hassan coordinated everything, assigning different family members to transport documents. Ahmed's last message before his death caught my eye. He'd been asking questions about his first wife's accident. The group went silent after that message. 3 days later, Ahmed died in a car crash. The investigators ruled it accidental. I needed the storage unit location, but that meant breaking into Uncle Hassan's email. The password reset went to his phone. I'd have to get close to him somehow. My childhood best friend Kareem worked as a police officer now. He found me at the park where we used to play as kids. "There's a warrant coming," he said quietly. "Federal investigation. They think you're running some kind of cult. You should leave town." But I couldn't leave, not with the girls still trapped. I gathered all the evidence I had and went to the local news station. The reporter seemed interested until I mentioned which families were involved. Her expression changed. She made excuses about needing to verify facts. Later, I learned the station owner's daughter had married into one of the allied families. The story died before it began. Sarah's condition worsened in the hospital. She needed emergency surgery, but her parents refused consent until she recanted her lies about the forced marriage. The doctors were bound by law. They could only watch as she deteriorated. 5 allied families mobilized like an army. Girls vanished from schools overnight. Mothers quit their jobs to homeschool. The community closed ranks, protecting their traditions with military precision. Social media filled with posts about protecting children from dangerous influences and mental contagion. I realized this network extended far beyond my family. The practice wasn't dying out. It was organizing, adapting, becoming more sophisticated. At 3 a.m., someone knocked on my apartment door. Through the peephole, I saw Fatima, still in her nightgown, clutching a small bag. I opened the door, and she stumbled inside, her face streaked with tears. "They moved up the wedding," she gasped. "Tomorrow morning. I stole these." She opened her bag to show birth control pills, just in case I couldn't escape in time. Her brothers would track her here soon. We both knew it. I gave her my car keys and all the cash I had. "Drive to the women's shelter on Madison. Ask for Jennifer. She knows our situation. Come with me," she begged. "They'll follow me. You have a better chance alone." 20 minutes after she left, her brothers arrived. They dragged her from my car 2 blocks away. She broke character completely, screaming the truth about the forced marriages until one of them covered her mouth. Neighbors watched from windows, but no one intervened. Uncle Hassan visited me the next morning. "Leave the country," he said simply. "Today, we'll buy your ticket, or stay and watch Fatima's wedding tonight." I refused. That evening, they married her to a man older than her father. I couldn't get close to the venue, but someone live-streamed parts of it. Fatima stood like a statue, the dead-eyed stare now real, not performed. Sarah's nurse, Priya, not my ex-girlfriend but a different woman with the same name, approached me in the hospital cafeteria. She rolled up her sleeve to show old scars around her ankle. "Chains," she said simply. "I escaped a similar situation 10 years ago. I've been documenting everything happening here." She revealed the truth that made my stomach drop. 23 families across 3 states practiced this tradition, all interconnected through marriages, creating a web of abuse spanning generations. Every girl I thought I'd saved was already on a list for specific matches. Our madness strategy had just reshuffled the deck, pushing younger girls forward to replace the mad ones. My mother cornered me at home with an ultimatum. "Testify that the girls are mentally ill, that you manipulated them, or I'll testify that you molested Amira." My sister stood behind her, that dead stare I'd taught her now genuine trauma. "She's lying," Amira said mechanically, "but she'll make me say it's true." I refused. Within hours, my mother filed a police report with the fabricated journal entries as evidence. The investigation opened immediately. Paranoid now, I started recording every interaction. A hidden camera in my jacket, audio recorders in my pockets. I became like them, constantly documenting, building evidence, preparing for war. I confronted my father at his workplace about Ahmed's first wife. His co-workers pretended not to notice our heated conversation. "She was too weak," he finally admitted. "Some girls just can't handle their duties." Ahmed knew the risks when he married her. "She was 12, I said. "She was ready," he replied. The family decided. The storage unit location came from an unexpected source. The family doctor who'd signed the psychiatric evaluations approached me outside the mosque. His own daughter had just turned 11, just gotten her period. "I'll tell you where the documents are," he said, "if you promise to protect her." But when I arrived at the storage unit, security footage showed Uncle Hassan had already removed everything. He'd anticipated betrayal from within. Kareem couldn't delay my arrest any longer. Federal investigators were building a case against me as a cult leader who'd brainwashed young girls. The family's narrative was winning. 3 girls attempted sewer slide on the same night. 2 succeeded. Layla was one of them. At her funeral, I stood to speak about the truth of her death, but male relatives physically restrained me. Her father gave a speech about mental illness, about protecting our children from dangerous influences. He stared at me the entire time. Child Services removed me from the approved visitor list for all minor relatives. The social worker apologized, said the family seemed very concerned about my influence on the children. She had no idea she was enabling their system. My bank accounts were frozen after the family claimed I was mentally incompetent and stealing from them. Years of savings gone. I couldn't afford a lawyer. The public defender assigned to my case was overwhelmed and uninterested in cultural complications. Priya the nurse revealed the worst news yet. Fatima's marriage that morning hadn't been just a wedding. It was payment for a debt. A previous bride had died in the family, and blood money was owed. Fatima was the settlement. I finally snapped. I broke into the venue where another child wedding was happening, live streaming everything on social media. The bride looked no older than 12. I broadcast for 3 minutes before being struck unconscious by the groom's brothers. 50,000 people saw the stream before it cut off. I woke up in the hospital with a concussion and assault charges filed by Fatima's new husband. She visited once, a black eye poorly covered with makeup. I fell, she said mechanically, while her husband watched from the doorway. Uncle Hassan visited next, showing me a video on his phone. It was footage of me teaching the girls to lie, edited to look like grooming sessions. This is what the jury will see, he said. Your confession would be better for everyone. That night, Amira managed to sneak me a message written on a candy wrapper, passed through a sympathetic nurse. I remember everything. They made me lie. Help us. To save Amira from being married off, I made a choice. I confessed to conspiracy charges, admitting to brainwashing the girls, but not abuse. My lawyer said it was the best deal I'd get. During my transport to holding, I found something that made my blood freeze. In the evidence box was a marriage ledger. My name was listed as the one who'd arranged Sarah's marriage. The signature was perfect, forged using documents from my car loan. Sarah's surgery deadline approached. 6 hours, the doctor warned, or she'd face permanent damage. Her parents wouldn't consent unless I signed a statement taking full blame for her mental break. I understood Uncle Hassan's real goal then. My confession would invalidate every girl's testimony. They'd all be dismissed as coached lies. The madness strategy we'd created to protect them would be used to prove they were mentally incompetent witnesses. The court-appointed psychiatrist evaluated me, while my family submitted years of fabricated evidence. The doctor's questions seemed coached, leading me towards specific admissions. I had to convince him I was sane while everything pointed to elaborate delusions. To save Sarah's life, I agreed to plead guilty. But as I signed the confession, I added a coded message in the margins in Arabic. Only the girls who'd attended our sessions would understand it. The sparrow still flies at midnight. It was our emergency phrase, meaning the network lived on. Sarah got her surgery. She survived. But when she woke up, a marriage certificate waited on her bedside table, dated for her 16th birthday. The confession I'd signed was already being used to discredit all CPS investigations into the family. The psychiatric evaluations would be used to institutionalize the most rebellious girls. 3 were committed for shared psychotic disorder, allegedly caused by my influence. The treatment included memory suppression therapy. They were being erased. Priya lost her job after family members filed complaints about her obsession with their culture. She was branded a raxed, a troublemaker. The hospital quietly let her go. In jail awaiting trial, I met my cellmate Yusef. His daughter had died in our family at 15. Pregnancy complications, they'd said. He'd been planning revenge for 3 years, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. He showed me photos that made me vomit. His daughter's body showed signs of violence, not medical complications. The injuries matched what I'd heard about Ahmed's first wife. Same patterns, same methods. The death certificates were signed by the same doctor. I traded commissary items to get Yusef's girlfriend to visit the institutionalized girls as a volunteer art teacher. She recognized the signs immediately. The girls were drugged but fighting, leaving messages in their artwork. Prison visitor logs revealed Uncle Hassan had been visiting specific inmates. All were convicted of domestic murders. He was recruiting, building a network of men who'd already proven they could kill their wives and get away with it. To get evidence out, I had to attack a guard and extend my sentence. During the disciplinary hearing, I slipped photos to a female board member who was a mandated reporter. She recognized the cultural markers, understood what she was seeing. That night, Yusef died in a prison accident. His testimony about his daughter's murder would never be heard. The evidence he'd gathered disappeared from his cell. Uncle Hassan's new strategy was revealed through intercepted letters. He was arranging marriages between institutionalized girls and prisoners who needed citizenship. The marriages could happen without the girls even being present. Mental illness made wives unable to testify against husbands. It was a perfect system. Every protection we'd built became a weapon against us. The documented mental illness invalidated all testimony. The fake madness we'd performed was now real trauma that silenced them forever. A federal investigation opened, but it focused on me as a cult leader, not the family as traffickers. The narrative was set. I was the villain who'd driven innocent girls insane with my delusions. Yusef's photos haunted me even after his death. The matching injuries on his daughter and Ahmed's first wife pointed to a specific killer, someone who'd signed both marriage certificates. I cross-referenced the signatures with Sarah's notebook entries. The same elegant script appeared on 12 death certificates over 15 years. 2 institutionalized girls managed to communicate through their art therapy sessions. Their paintings showed recurring symbols, a sparrow at midnight, just like my coded message. The volunteer art teacher, Alexandra, smuggled out their work. One painting depicted a storage shed behind an old training ground. Another showed numbers that looked like coordinates. Prison visitor logs revealed more disturbing patterns. Uncle Hassan wasn't just visiting convicted murderers. He was specifically targeting men whose wives had died within a year of marriage, men who'd walked free on technicalities, men who understood the system. I watched helplessly as the institutionalized girls' marriages were processed. The paperwork was flawless. Psychiatric evaluations declaring them incompetent. Family consent as legal guardians. Citizenship applications applications for the grooms. 3 girls were married while sedated in their hospital beds. Then something unexpected happened. Sarah escaped. The medical transport van carrying her to a long-term psychiatric facility reported an empty gurney at their destination. Security footage showed Sarah had unstrapped herself during a bathroom stop, slipping out through an unlocked window. Within hours, she was live streaming from a hidden location. "I'm in the shed where it all began," she said to her phone camera, her hospital gown dirty and torn. Behind her, I recognized the utility room where I'd first found Fatima with the bleach bottle. They think I'm crazy. They think we're all crazy. But I remember everything. The family manhunt began immediately. Uncle Hassan coordinated search teams while my transport bus to federal prison took an unexpected detour past the search area. Through the barred windows, I watched family members combing through neighborhoods. Sarah's live stream continued sporadically. She showed pages from hidden notebooks, marriage contracts she'd photographed before the raid. Her viewership climbed. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people watching a young girl expose generational abuse. Then the storm hit. An unexpected downpour flooded the old training ground where Sarah was hiding. Water rose quickly in the low-lying area. She had to leave the shed or drown. Her live stream showed her wading through knee-deep water, hypothermia setting in, nowhere safe to go. Both the family search party and sympathetic community members raced to find her first. I pressed my face against the transport bus window, recognizing the streets, knowing exactly where she'd go next. The bridge over the river where we used to feed ducks as children. The bus driver, a woman who'd been watching the situation unfold on her phone at red lights, made an unauthorized stop. "Bathroom emergency," she announced to the guards, parking within view of the bridge. I saw them converge, Uncle Hassan's car from one direction, a women's shelter van from another. Sarah stood on the bridge railing, soaked and shivering, looking down at the churning water below. Both vehicles screeched to a halt. "Come down, Habibti," Uncle Hassan called out, his voice carrying even through the bus windows. "You're sick. We'll help you get better." Sarah looked directly at his car, then at the shelter van. She pulled something from her pocket, a flash drive on a chain around her neck. "I'm not crazy," she said clearly, her words picked up by her still streaming phone propped on the bridge rail. Then she jumped. The water was freezing, swollen from the storm. Both rescue teams dove in after her, but the current was too strong. I watched Uncle Hassan wade in up to his chest before being pulled back by his brothers. The women from the shelter threw ropes that fell short. Sarah's body wasn't found. The family claimed she'd been mentally ill, driven to Sewerslide by delusions. Others whispered she'd been pulled from the water downstream by sympathetic fishermen, smuggled across the border. Her live stream had cut off when her phone hit the water, leaving her fate unknown. My sister Amira did something extraordinary that same day. While the family searched for Sarah, she led child services to our grandfather's grave. The headstone was loose. Beneath it, wrapped in plastic, were hundreds of marriage certificates dating back 60 years. The documents revealed the truth that shattered everything. My mother's name was on the first certificate, married at 11 to my father. My grandmother's certificate showed she was 10. Every woman in our family was both victim and perpetrator, trapped in a generational cycle of abuse. Their signatures appeared on their daughters' certificates, complicit in perpetuating what had been done to them. The evidence was overwhelming but complicated. Prosecuting meant destroying women who'd been victims themselves. The younger generation would be saved by condemning mothers and grandmothers who'd had no choice in their own fates. During my trial, I sat as the sole defendant while the family walked free. The prosecutor painted me as a cult leader who'd driven vulnerable girls to mental illness. My public defender barely tried to counter the narrative. The confession I'd signed was the star evidence, but something was happening outside the courtroom. The live streams had spread beyond our community. Other girls in similar situations began faking mental illness, using our techniques. The madness defense went viral in closed forums, spreading through whisper networks. 6 months into my 5-year sentence, a postcard arrived. No signature, just coordinates. The location was a women's shelter in Canada. More postcards followed from different locations: Seattle, Portland, Vancouver. The Underground Railroad had evolved, adapted. The institutionalized girls began recovering memories despite the suppression therapy. Their artwork grew bolder, messages clearer. One girl managed to escape during a supervised outing, following symbols other survivors had left in public spaces. Prison visitors brought news from outside. 3 more families had seen their marriageable daughters develop sudden mental illness. The symptoms were spreading faster than the families could contain them. Psychiatric wards filled with girls performing madness so convincingly that even experts struggled to differentiate performance from genuine trauma. Uncle Hassan visited me once in prison. He looked older, grayer. "The bloodline is polluted now," he said quietly. "No one wants our daughters anymore. They're all considered defective." I said nothing, but we both knew the truth. The madness strategy had worked too well. By teaching girls to fake mental illness, we'd created a generation unmarriageable by their standards. The very purity the families obsessed over had been contaminated beyond repair. Priya, the nurse, started a new job at a women's clinic in another state. She sent coded messages through approved channels. Former victims were becoming nurses, teachers, social workers. They were embedding themselves in systems where they could identify and help others. The family's financial structure began collapsing. The dowries and bride prices that funded their lifestyle dried up. Younger men refused marriages to defective girls. The elder generation found themselves without the generational wealth transfer they'd depended on. My mother visited once, looking haunted. She didn't speak about the certificates found in grandfather's grave, but her eyes held a recognition that hadn't been there before. She left commissary money and never came back. 2 years into my sentence, Ahmed's phone, still hidden in my belongings, received a message. A young girl claiming to be his daughter from his second wife. She was 12, the age her mother had been when married. She was asking for help. I taught my cellmate the signs to look for, the code words to spread. He taught others. Guards' daughters learned to twitch at dinner tables. The strategy spread through prison visitors to communities we'd never reached. By year 3, the psychiatric hospitals had adapted. They developed new protocols for distinguishing performed madness from genuine illness. But the girls adapted adapted too, their performances evolving, becoming more sophisticated. It became an arms race between detection and deception. Some girls were caught and forced into marriages anyway. Others disappeared into the network. Justice was partial, imperfect, Pyrrhic. For every girl saved, another was lost. The system persisted but weakened, corrupted from within by its own tools of control. Uncle Hassan's final visit came in my 4th year. He sat across from me in the visiting room, his hands trembling with age or rage. "You destroyed us," he said. "Centuries of tradition, gone." "No," I replied. "You destroyed yourselves the day you decided daughters were property." He left, without another word. I heard later he'd moved back to the old country, where the traditions still held strong. But even there, whispers of the madness defense were spreading. The art teacher Alexandra kept visiting the institutionalized girls. Slowly, carefully, she helped them reduce their medications, sharpen their minds. 2 more escaped. 3 others aged out of marriageable range while institutionalized, saved by time, if not by justice. On my release day, no family waited for me, but a van from a halfway house was there, driven by a woman with familiar eyes. She didn't speak until we were miles from the prison. "Sarah says hello," she said quietly. "She's studying to be a lawyer now, Canadian law." The halfway house was full of men like me, brothers, cousins, uncles who'd chosen their daughter's freedom over family honor. We shared strategies, evolved the network, prepared for the next generation's fight. I found work at a warehouse, lived quietly, stayed off social media, but the postcards kept coming. Each one a girl saved, a life reclaimed. The madness strategy had become bigger than any of us, a viral defense against an ancient violence. 5 years after that Thursday gathering, I stood outside the mosque where I'd been thrown down the steps. The building was for sale. The congregation had shrunk, families scattered or broken. Inside, a few old men prayed to emptiness. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, a photo of a young girl in a graduation cap, holding a diploma. In the background, barely visible, was Sarah, alive, free, fighting the system from within now. The war for our girls' freedom wasn't over. It had evolved, gone underground, spread beyond our control. Some battles we'd won, others we'd lost. But in teaching girls to perform madness, we'd given them something precious. The knowledge that resistance was possible, that traditions could be broken, that sometimes the crazy ones were the sanest of all.
আমরা যে সালাদটা ট্রাই করেছি সেই সালাদের সাথেই কিছুটা মিল আছে।
অ্যান্ড টেক্সচার ওয়াইজ আমি বলবো আপনি অ্যাগেন সবচেয়ে ক্লোজেস্ট গিয়েছেন। বাবা গানুশের রেপ্রেজেন্ট আপনি একটা সস বানিয়েছেন যেটা দ্য টেক্সচার অফ ইট ইজ ভেরি সিমিলার টু বাবা গানুশ। ওভারঅল আই থিঙ্ক আজকে ওয়াজ আ ভেরি গুড ট্রাই।
সিমিলার টেক্সচার অ্যান্ড ফ্লেভারটাকে ম্যাচ করার ট্রাই করেছি, জানি না কতটুকু পেরেছি।
ফুড টেস্ট করবার সময় কি ভেবেছিলেন, কি কি আছে?
এতটুকু বুঝতে পারছিলাম যে এটা একটা স্যালাড, আর সিজনিংগুলো যখন মুখে যাচ্ছিল তখন ইটালিয়ান স্যালাডের সাথে কিছুটা মানে মিল করতে পারছিলাম। আমি যখন ব্রেডটা খাই তখন ক্রিস্পি লেগেছে অ্যান্ড অয়েলে ভাজা মনে হয়েছে, কারণ ক্রিস্পি একটা টেক্সচার ছিল। দ্যাটস ওয়াই আমি ভেবেছি যে এটা মেবি নাচোসের ব্রেড হবে, দেন আমি ওইভাবে ক্রিয়েট করে যাই।
আপনি আজকে 20টা ইনগ্রিডিয়েন্টস গেস করেছিলেন। আউট অফ 20 ইউ গট 14 রাইট। 14টা আপনার ঠিক হয়েছে। স্যালাডে কি ড্রেসিং দিয়েছেন?
অলিভ অয়েল, থাইম, সল্ট, পেপার, টোবাস্কো সস অ্যান্ড সুগার।
প্রেজেন্টেশনটা অনেকটাই কাছাকাছি গেছে, এটা আমার ভালো লেগেছে। এক্স্যাক্টলি হয় নাই, বাট যেটা তুমি বানিয়েছো সেটা খেতে খারাপ লাগছে না, ভালোই লেগেছে আমার কাছে। ক্রিম যে সসটা করেছো চিজ দিয়ে সেটাও ভালো লেগেছে, কিন্তু এক্স্যাক্টলি যেটা ছিল বাবা গানুশ সেই জিনিসটা আসেনি। আর তুমি 20 ইনগ্রিডিয়েন্টস বলেছিলে, কিন্তু অনেকগুলোই ভুল ছিল। এখানে কারেক্ট তো শেফ বলেই দিল, তোমার 14th মতো হয়েছে। বাট আমি বলবো তারপরেও এটা গুড ট্রাই ছিল। থ্যাংক ইউ।
জয়েরিয়া, আপনার আগে যে দুজন পার্টিসিপেন্ট এসেছে আপনাদের 3 জনের মধ্যে আই থিঙ্ক আপনার প্রেজেন্টেশন ইজ দ্য বেস্ট and it's the closest to ours. আপনি the most amount of right answers so far আপনি দিয়েছেন 14 out of the total 26 ingredients যেটা আমাদের এখানে ছিল। Taste wise I think it's a good salad and texture wise আমি বলবো আপনি again সবচেয়ে closest গিয়েছেন। বাবা গানুশের রেপ্রেজেন্ট আপনি একটা সস বানিয়েছেন যেটা the texture of it is very similar to বাবা গানুশ। Overall, I think আজকে was a very good try.
আমরা যে সালাদটা ট্রাই করেছি সেই সালাদের সাথেই কিছুটা মিল আছে। সেখান থেকে আপনি অনেকটা এগিয়ে আছেন, অনেক সুন্দর ট্রাই করেছেন। থ্যাংক ইউ।
সো আপনার দুটো পোর্শন টোটাল হয়েছে,
জি
then একটা সার্ভ করেছে, সেটাই তো?
টোটাল উপরে
And then টোটাল আপনি
হ্যাঁ
526 টাকা সেল করছেন। ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ জুয়েরিয়া।
সো আপনি প্রথমবার পাফ ডো বানিয়েছেন, তার আগে কি আপনি শিখেছেন কোথাও?
আমাদেরকে মেন্টর ক্লাস করেছিলেন, নাতাশা ম্যাম আমাদেরকে শিখিয়েছিলেন।
আচ্ছা,
ওই ক্লাসে ম্যাম যেভাবে শিখিয়েছেন ওইটাই আমি ফলো করেছি আজকে। আজকে আমি বানিয়েছি চিজ স্ট্র, তারপরে হচ্ছে ক্রিমি চিকেন পাফ, মাশরুম বলবনো, আর হচ্ছে বিফ প্যাটিস।
আজকে আমরা যখন ট্রিট দিলাম আপনাদেরকে, আপনার কেমন লাগলো?
ট্রিট পেতে তো ভালোই লাগে, কিন্তু পরে যেটা হলো ওইটা বেশি সারপ্রাইজিং ছিল।
ট্রিট পেয়ে সারপ্রাইজিং ছিল?
না, ট্রিটটা পেতে ভালো লেগেছে, তারপরে যখন এটাই আমাদেরকে আবার বানানোর চ্যালেঞ্জ দেওয়া হলো ওটা বেশি সারপ্রাইজিং ছিল।
আচ্ছা, সো আপনি প্রথমবার পাফ ডো বানিয়েছেন, তার আগে কি আপনি শিখেছেন কোথাও?
আমাদেরকে মেন্টর ক্লাস করেছিলেন, নাতাশা ম্যাম আমাদেরকে শিখিয়েছিলেন।
আচ্ছা,
ওই ক্লাসে ম্যাম যেভাবে শিখিয়েছেন ওইটাই আমি ফলো করেছি আজকে।
ভালো ট্রাই করেছেন, আমার কাছে খেতে খুব ভালো লেগেছে, এক্সেপ্ট দিস ওয়ান। চিজ স্ট্রটা ছাড়া আমার কাছে বিফ প্যাটিস, চিকেন অ্যান্ড মাশরুম এগুলোর খেতে ভালো লেগেছে, ক্রিস্পি ছিল, আর ভিতরের ফিলিংটা আমার কাছে খুব ভালো লেগেছে। থ্যাংক ইউ। অ্যান্ড মেন্টার্স নাদিয়া, নাতাশা, অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ, আপনি শিখিয়েছেন, আপনার স্টুডেন্ট ভালো করেছে।
নসিং, আমি কমপ্লিটলি পূর্ণিমা ম্যামের সাথে এগ্রি করি। আপনার আজকে 4টে ডিশের মধ্যে দ্য চিজ স্ট্র, আই ফেল্ট এটা স্লাইটলি ল্যাকিং ইন ফ্লেভার, এটাতে আপনি আরও অ্যাডিশনাল ফ্লেভার্স দিতে পারতেন। ইটস জাস্ট দ্য পাফ ডো অ্যান্ড দ্য চিজ। বাকি 3টা যে করেছেন, বিফ প্যাটিস, দ্য বলেভো অ্যান্ড দ্য চিকেন পাফ, এক্সেলেন্ট হয়েছে। ফিলিংগুলো স্পেশালি, ফিলিংগুলো খেতে মজা। অ্যান্ড আমি যদি এই 4টার মধ্যে আমাকে বেস্ট পিক করতে হয়, আজকে আই থিঙ্ক আপনার বিফ প্যাটিসটা সবচেয়ে ভালো ছিল। অল্প সময়ের মধ্যে ফার্স্ট টাইম ট্রাই করেছেন, গুড জব, ভালো ছিল।
আমার বাকি জাজেসটা বলে দিয়েছে, তবে চিজ স্ট্রটা যেটা হয়েছে ফ্লেভার প্লাস এটা একটু ওয়েল কুক হয় নাই, এটা কাঁচা রয়ে গেছে এই যে। আর এছাড়া বাকিগুলো ঠিক ছিল।
থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম।
এটা আরেকটু বেক হলে আমার মনে হয় এটা ক্রিস্পিনেস যেটা হয়, চিজ স্ট্র বলি আমরা, ক্রাঞ্চি ওই ভাবটা থাকতে পারে। আর এগুলোর ফিলিং সব কিছু মিলিয়ে ফ্লেভার ভালো ছিল বাকি 3টা।
থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
কস্টিংটা আমরা ইউজুয়ালি কস্টিংয়ের মার্কটাই এন্টারপ্রাইজিং স্কিলসে থাকে। আপনার কস্টিংটা আমি দেখেছি, ইট ইজ পারফেক্ট, বাট আপনি এমনিও 10 মার্কস আজকে পাচ্ছেন আমাদের থেকে। থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ। Congratulations, Nato. Daushim.
পূর্ণিমা ম্যাম অনেক অ্যাপ্রিসিয়েট করেছে যে আমি যেহেতু আগে বেকিং করিনি কখনো, আজকে আমি ফার্স্ট ট্রাই করেছি অ্যান্ড আমার ফার্স্ট অ্যাটেম্প্ট ভালো ছিল। অ্যান্ড আমার একটা ডিশ চিজ স্ট্র যেটা ছিল ওইটা ছাড়া বাকি যেই 3টা আইটেম ছিল 3টাই তারা ভালো বলেছেন। সো এরপরে একটু মানে বিগ রিলিফ পেলাম আমি। মনে হলো যে না অ্যাটলিস্ট খুব ভালো না হলেও অ্যাভারেজ একটা কমেন্টস তাদের কাছ থেকে পেয়েছি।
আপনি বিফ দিয়েছেন, চিকেন দিয়েছেন, একসাথে অনেকগুলো প্রোটিন, সাথে আবার অনেকগুলো ভেজিটেবল বানিয়েছেন, দারুণ। কিন্তু গেস করেছেন অনেক কম।
শেফ আমি হচ্ছে নাচোস উইথ বারবিকিউ ফ্লেভারড হোয়াইট সস আর হচ্ছে একটা মিক্সড চিকেন অ্যান্ড ভেজিটেবল করেছি। ওটার সাথে এই যে হোয়াইট সসটা ওটাই দিয়েছি, বাট ওখানে আবার বারবিকিউর ফ্লেভারটা একটু কম দিয়েছি।
নসীন, আপনি আজকে কতগুলো ইনগ্রিডিয়েন্টস গেস করেছিলেন?
17টা।
17টা ইনগ্রিডিয়েন্টস দিয়ে আপনি রেসিপিটা বানিয়েছেন।
হ্যাঁ, শুধু জুকিনি লিখেছিলাম, ওটা ছিল না, সো ওটা দিন।
বিফও ছিল না।
জি,
বিফটাও ছিল না।
না মানে আমি লিস্ট মানে অ্যাড করেছি কি সেটা
অ্যাড করেছে?
হ্যাঁ, মানে অ্যাড করিনি, জুকিনিটা জাস্ট অ্যাড করিনি, বাকি সব।
নসীন, আজকে আমাদের টোটাল ইনগ্রিডিয়েন্টস ছিল 26টা, 26, যেটার মধ্যে আপনি গেস করেছেন 17টা, অ্যান্ড 17টার মধ্যে আপনার 9টা কারেক্ট হয়েছে। সো ওভারঅল আমি যদি বলি, আপনি আজকে রেসিপি কমপ্লিটলি ডিফারেন্ট একটা বানিয়েছেন, নাচোস বানিয়েছেন। আই সি দ্য সিমিলারিটিস বিটুইন পিটা ব্রেড অ্যান্ড নাচোস। সো ওই জায়গাতে আল গিভ ইউ দ্য ক্রেডিট যে আপনি ক্রিসপি টেক্সচার দেখে হয়তো বা নাচোস মনে করেছেন। স্যালাডটা কমপ্লিটলি হয়নি, বিকজ ইট ওয়াজ আ কোল্ড স্যালাড। বিটরুট ছিল, ফেটা চিজ ছিল। আপনি নাচোস চিন্তা করেই নাচোসের জন্য একটা ফিলিং বানিয়ে ফেলেছেন।
আজকে আমাদের যে টাস্ক ছিল সেটা নিয়ে আমাদের শেফ বলে দিয়েছেন। আমি যদি টেস্টের কথা শুধু বলি আলাদা করে, তাহলে আমার কাছে এটা খেতে মজা লাগছে, দারুণ লাগছে, কিন্তু আজকের টাস্কের সাথে ম্যাচ করেনি। নাচোসটা ক্রিসপি, আপনি বিফ দিয়েছেন, চিকেন দিয়েছেন, একসাথে অনেকগুলো প্রোটিন, সাথে আবার অনেকগুলো ভেজিটেবল বানিয়েছেন, দারুণ, কিন্তু গেস করেছেন অনেক কম। থ্যাংক ইউ।
পূর্ণিমার সাথে আমিও একমত যে খাবারটা খেতে ভালো হয়েছে, কিন্তু আজকের যে টাস্ক ছিল তার কাছাকাছি কম যেতে পেরেছিল। থ্যাংক ইউ, গুড ফ্রাই ছিল।
নসীন, আপনার নাচোসের কস্টিং ঠিক আছে।
থ্যাংক ইউ নওশিম, আপনার ফুড নিয়ে যাবেন।
টেন মিনিটস মাইনাস হওয়ার পরেও আপনি আজকে একটা ছক্কা মেরে দিয়েছেন।
পরবর্তী চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো থেকে আমি নিজে আরও 10 মিনিট কমিয়ে দেব, কেউ দেখ বা না দেখ, কমিয়ে দিলেই আপনি ভালো করছেন। নিশাত, আপনার খাবার নিয়ে চলে আসুন।
হ্যালো জাজেস,
হ্যালো।
ফ্রান্সিয়ার স্যামন উইথ চ্যাট পটেটো পেস্টো সস দিয়েছি, ক্রিমি সস করেছি, আর সটেড ভেজিটেবল দিয়েছি, গার্লিক ব্রেড, সাথে ক্রিমি পর্ন, একটা ক্রিমি পর্ন সস করেছি।
টেন মিনিটস মাইনাস হওয়ার পরেও আপনি আজকে একটা ছক্কা মেরে দিয়েছেন। প্লেটিং দিয়ে শুরু করি। অ্যাবসোলুটলি বিউটিফুল। এই প্লেটিংটা। আমি প্রতিটা এলিমেন্ট টেস্ট করে দেখছিলাম। স্যামন ইজ কুকড বিউটিফুলি, কালারটা খুবই সুন্দর, সসটা মজা, আপনার বেসিল যে পেস্তো বানিয়েছেন সেটার টেস্টও অনেক ভালো, অ্যাসপারাগাস কুকড পারফেক্টলি, বেসিল অয়েলটা অ্যাডস আ লট অফ ফ্লেভার। ওভারঅল এই প্লেটে ইটস পারফেকশন।
থ্যাংক ইউ শেফ।
আজকে আমার দুটো ডিশ আই থিঙ্ক 10 on 10।
নিশাত,
জি ম্যাম।
আজকে যদি বেঁচে যান, পরবর্তী চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো থেকে আমি নিজে আরও 10 মিনিট কমিয়ে দেব। কেউ দেখ বা না দেখ, কমিয়ে দিলেই আপনি ভালো করছেন।
কমিয়ে দিলে সবসময় যে ভালো নাও করতে পারি।
20 মিনিট কমাই, ছেলে আর মেয়ে, ছেলের জন্য 10, মেয়ের জন্য 10। চমৎকার একটা ডিশ, এবং প্রত্যেকটা ইনগ্রেডিয়েন্টসের যে অ্যারোমাটা আমি পাচ্ছি, স্পেশালি সালমন ফিশের যে কালারটা থাকে খাওয়ার পর, প্রন গার্লিক ব্রেড, এটার সাথে সসটা দিয়ে যখন আমি খেয়েছি, ইট ওয়াজ সো গুড, ডিলিশিয়াস, অ্যামেজিং। থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম।
এই যে এতদিন ধরে তুমি পারফর্ম করে আসছো, আজকে হলো বেস্ট আমি প্লেটিং দেখতে পেলাম এবং ফুড টেস্ট। প্রনটা ওভারকুক হয়নি, জুসি ছিল, আবার একেবারে যে আন্ডার সেটা থাকা সেটাও হয়নি, আর কাঁচাও ছিল না, সব কিছু মিলিয়ে দারুণ, খুব ভালো হয়েছে। একটা প্রফেশনাল যে পার্সন সেই রকম একজন শেফের প্লেটের মতো প্লেট হয়েছে। প্লেটিংটা অনেক ভালো,
Thank you so much.
খাবারটাও অনেক টেস্টি।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
দিস ইজ এ ফাইন ডাইনিং 5,000 টাকার ডিশ। থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ নিশাত, অ্যান্ড কংগ্রাচুলেশনস।
Midnight food, but this is not something that I would crave at night.
বাট এটা একটা পুরো হেলদি ফুড, ডায়েটের জন্য বেস্ট, মিডনাইটের জন্য মনে হয়েছে খুব একটা পারফেক্ট না। নওগাঁর জুয়াইরিয়া, দ্রুত চলে আসুন।
আমি বানিয়েছি চিকেন কলিফ্লাওয়ার ফ্রাইড রাইস উইথ ফ্রাইড এগ।
জুয়াইরিয়া, আপনার যে ইনগ্রেডিয়েন্টগুলো খুবই চমৎকার, খুবই হেলদি, খুবই নিউট্রিশিয়াস। একটা জিনিস শুধু আমার কাছে মনে হচ্ছে যে একটু আদাটা মনে হচ্ছে একটু বেশি আমার মুখে লাগছিল, এবং মিডনাইট ক্রেভিংয়ের ফুডস হিসেবে অতটা পারফেক্ট লাগে নাই। হয়তো আমরা বিকেলের নাস্তা হিসেবে ওটা ঠিক ছিল, অথবা যারা খুব হেলথ কনসিয়াস তাদের জন্য লাঞ্চ আইটেম হিসেবে ঠিক আছে। আর ডিমটা আপনি কেন দিয়েছেন আমি জানি না, ডিমটা না খুব একটা ম্যাচ করছে না ওটার সঙ্গে। বাট ওভারঅল আমি যদি ক্যালোরির কথা চিন্তা করি, ক্যালোরি ঠিক আছে, আমরা আমাদের যতটুকু টার্গেট ছিল ওটা আপনি মনে হয় অতটুকুর মধ্যেই রেখেছেন। আমরা যদি নিউট্রিশিয়াস খাবার হিসেবে চিন্তা করি ওই জায়গাটা ঠিক আছে, তবে টেস্টের দিক থেকে মনে হয়েছে এবং আইটেম হিসেবে মিডনাইটের জন্য মনে হয়েছে খুব একটা পারফেক্ট না, আদারওয়াইজ ইটস ওকে।
দেখতে প্রথম বোলটা যখন আসলো আমার কাছে বেশ ভালো লেগেছে, কিন্তু আমি যখন একটা বাইট নিলাম আমার তখন ক্রেভিং চলে গেল। থ্যাংক ইউ।
I understand this is a midnight food, but this is not something that I would crave at night. Presentation tao, it's not up to the mark. Eta dekhe amar kache appetizing mone hocche na. It looks healthy, but not appetizing.
পুরোটাই আপনার একদম ভেজিটেবলের মধ্যেই করেছেন আপনি। একটু একটু ছোটো ছোটো করে চিকেন আছে, চিকেনের বাইটটা কম করছে, বাট এটা একটা পুরো হেলদি ফুড, ডায়েটের জন্য বেস্ট। মিডনাইট ক্রেভিংয়ের জন্য আমরা খুব একটা হেলদি ফুড খাই না, বাট আপনি ক্যালোরি কাউন্ট করে যদি হিসাব করেন যে ঠিক আছে আমার এই ক্যালোরির মধ্যে এটা আসে যায়, দেন ইটস পারফেক্ট।
কস্টিং অ্যান্ড ক্যালোরি কাউন্ট ঠিক আছে প্লিজ।
থ্যাংক ইউ জয়রিয়া।